Hello, everyone. Welcome to this podcast show. I'm Taha Sajid. We have with us Sundas and Mr. Jose Batista. Sundas, you can start.
All right. Hello. Um, Hi, everyone. So basically, let me just give you a little bit of an introduction about Taha. Taha is the CEO and the founder of Security Pulse, which is basically working towards providing solutions as well as services for cybersecurity. And along the same lines, Taha is a seasoned lead solution architect and security lead with extensive experience in guiding startups and major enterprises like Huawei, Comcast, and Ufone. He specializes in developing emerging tech solutions, achieving compliance, and enhancing network security. As the author of the best selling Ultimate Blockchain Security Handbook, he shares strategies for securing blockchain applications and mitigating crypto scams. He has also created a highly rated online course on cybersecurity for telecom, blockchain, DeFi, and fintech. He, like again, I mentioned, he's the founder of Security Pulse. He empowers organizations to stay informed and technological advancements. His accolades include recognition and Marcus, Who's Who, the Einstein Visa for Extraordinary Ability, and being named a Microsoft MVP and global thought leader in 5G, blockchain, and cybersecurity. That's pretty much it about Taha. Taha, over to you now.
Yeah, thank you, Sundas. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. So it's my pleasure. Actually, now I want to introduce my guest, Jose Batista, uh, and uh, I'm very much pleased and humbled and honored to have him with me as my guest because to tell you, like my audience and everybody who's watching this show, I met him in 2018 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and whatever the kickstart I needed in my career early, I dedicate this to Mr. Jose. He mentored me in the initial part of my career, and I witnessed that how he has excelled from there and have witnessed his journey as well. So I am really motivated and I am honored to have him. So Mr. Jose Batista, he is having a 15 years of experience and like more experience. He has worked in Meta. He's been working in ServiceNow. He has done wonders in blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. And now he has authored a book as well, which is my favorite read, like these days. And the the thing which I really liked about him is that how he explained complex things into simple language and gives that hands-on feel to the audience where like the audience can not just understand the concepts, but they know also that how they can apply those concepts into their workforce. So I'm really glad that he's here right now with us. uh, Welcome, Mr. Batista. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you. And the honor is mine to be here at your show. I have been following your career as well. I think it's mutual, right? This sense of admiration for our professional careers and our ambition to help others, right, with sharing our knowledge and our experience globally. And that is the key. So thank you. I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm looking forward to a very informative and valuable discussion for whoever is listening now, and this will be recorded, so if anyone in the future that want to take
Yeah.
advantage of it. So glad to be here.
And as we start, I want to show a few pictures to our audience, to what we and how I know. And so this is the picture, guys, which we have taken in Riyadh. Mr. Batista was a speaker there, and I was hosting that event. So we took that picture while I think that was like during lunchtime. So that was a very good memory that we share. And then we had few shows earlier, where I came into his channel. So that was very informative as well. So that is something like a memory which I share with him. So I just wanted to start this discussion with having that memories with him, so that we can start from the next stage. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
To start off, Mr. Jose, can you walk us through about your journey, and the motivation like behind writing this book, because I've been following you like for some time now, as I told you, as we know. But so you started initially with blockchain, then you got into AI, machine learning, and then you were publishing videos on how people can use those tools, how they can apply those skills. And then from being working in a corporate world and then starting this book, so what has motivated you to write this book? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it will be helpful for our audience just to a brief background, right? So I have always loved technology, not just for the sake of technology, but also from the pragmatic point of view as to how technology can help us to do things better and be more efficient. So back at that time that we met, back in the 2007, 2008, I was already working with the very earliest stages of practical use of artificial intelligence. I even started a small venture, a small company that the job was to use services available at Amazon Web Services and Google to do transcription, to transcribe speaking word into text. And in fact, it produced some revenue, but the technology was pretty bad back then, just to set that aside. But the reason that we met, Taha, you were on point of that. I have always wanted to share what I learned. My best way of learning is sharing what I learned, right? Let me explain that to someone, like a complex way of technology. Let me explain that to others. And I started a blog, a video blog called What and Why First. And that was the connection to our meeting in Riyadh back in December 2018, because the organizers of the event saw my videos and they said, "Hey, would you like to present at this event?" I was talking at that time about artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things, all those new trends and new technologies. That was part of my learning, and I was sharing those things. So when I attended that event in Riyadh, that was a kind of a connection to already a pattern of learning that I have at that time. Now, from there, I was working at that time for an insurance company. There was not that much room for uh, that much appetite for technology at that level. So I continued preparing, and eventually I got a job at artificial intelligence and machine learning back in the early 2019s. And that was my kind of a first exposure to, let's make this practical. Let's build things that way. So that was PPG Industries. From PPG Industries, I went to Meta to work on more advanced new introduction technology, codec avatars. As you may recall, and some of our audience may recall, at one point Meta was pursuing the metaverse, right? On these hyper realistic avatars. And that was a very amazing experience. And finally, I was working at Harvard Business School, and that was the connection to the book, right? Because when I was working at Harvard Business School, people saw my videos about Whisper. Again, I was sharing information. I was sharing what I was learning about this new technology called Whisper from OpenAI. They found my video and they approached me, this publisher called Pact, P-A-C-K-T. It's a very well-known publisher in the technology industry. And they reached out and say, would you like to write a book for us? And that was in November of last year. So yeah, that is in short, the journey. I think the lessons there for me is that all of that had happened because of my desire of learning and sharing with others what I learned. Yeah.
That's a very, very interesting point. And and for everyone who is watching, uh, I also endorse the same point that whatever you are learning, making sure that others learn as well, because this would serve two purpose. One is that you can master your whatever the context you are learning, because like you'll have to teach that to somebody else, so you'll be more focused on your objectives, as well as people can as people will take away from that knowledge which you share, they can also uh, give you that brand recognition, and they can also speak about you with their audience. So this will also be a good recognition for you as well. So that is something which is also I endorse the same thing.
Yeah.
Very good. So moving forward, OpenAI Whisper. So if I am a reader, I don't know anything about OpenAI. Okay, uh, what do you think? What are the main components, features of this book that our audience can take, and why would anybody be traveling, let's say, going to a duty-free shop, see your book, OpenAI Whisper? What what is there for him which he can take away?
Yeah, yeah, good question. Good question, Taha. So of course, I have a straight answer, right? I mean, my best motivation for writing the book was for the reader to accomplish three things essentially. Number one, understand generative AI, and the why on that is one of the most significant technologies of this so far this century. Essentially, it's revolutionized the way that we look at artificial intelligence. We are approaching a very interesting space of what we're going to talk about that in a moment. But it's to me, my book is the best way to learn what is generative AI, independently of OpenAI Whisper, right? That would be number two. So you get an understanding of generative AI. What is it? What is not? Which is as important, right? Is not the cure for all the problems in the world, as some organizations try to portray it. It is a very unique and powerful technology. And we're going to go in a moment that I'm going to show you through the outline, what that section is. Secondly, I think the second reason is, in my humble opinion, conversational AI is a kind of underdog, perhaps underappreciated, under perhaps the spotlight. It's not in the spotlight as to one of the most revolutionary technologies that we're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years. Conversational AI is going to be everywhere. And behind the scenes, there is an orchestration of other technologies driven in some cases by machine learning, generative AI, and other technologies that allow a multimodal, when I say multimodal, images, sounds, it could be sensorial, it could be industrial level information, sounds the machine produce, all of that, a multimodal kind of approach to understanding the world or the environment and making inferences, intelligent inferences from that. And in my book, I explain that using OpenAI Whisper. And why Whisper? Because Whisper, number one, is the top of the line when it comes to transcription from audio to text. And secondly, it's open source. So you can actually see the code, that you can see how it works. You can see the inners of it. And in my book, I explain that. So again, number one, you'll get an understanding of generative AI. Number two, you get an excellent technology that is going to be helpful over the next 2 to 3 years, perhaps longer, to understanding and to master it. And then number three, I think as important as the technology aspect is, Taha, I think is as much in importance or high in importance the the business application of it, because it's not just learning the technology. Let's do practical applications of it, how that can help my job, my company, me as an individual, right, as I'm progressing to become an expert in this new space. Let's be practical. And within that practicality, we want to include the ethics associated with that, the inclusiveness associated with that. We don't want to be biased by any means. We want to avoid that. And more importantly, we want to be safe. We want to be secure. At some point, we want to be talking a little bit more about that. Because someone may be wondering, well, what is the connection between OpenAI Whisper and security? Oh, believe me, it is one of the most significant ones. So all those things, I think those three levels, I know that it's a long answer, but you learn the generative AI technology from the foundation. You understand how Whisper works. And once you understand Whisper, you can understand a lot of things that are happening today. And number three is going to prepare you, going to run you from a security, inclusiveness and safety perspective.
Very good, very good. It's been the more you are telling me about this book, the more I just want to go through and finish all this, the reading as soon as
Take
possible.
your
I just
time.
can't
Take
wait
your
to go
time. You
through
don't
it.
have to
Yeah,
rush for it. You don't have
yeah,
to rush.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about uh, the use cases. So we have what we have seen is IT industry is really evolving. The amount of technologies has been coming, whether it's a blockchain technology or a quantum computing, it's coming, distributed computing, high performance computing, all sort of uh, intelligent like technology has been coming. So in terms of the use cases, what do you think, if I'm a reader, I want to understand from the use case perspective, and I belong to a finance industry, which is, I'm having a lots of capital market investment. We have crypto going on. There is core banking systems as well, and there are some open banking APIs coming in. So what do you think, as terms of the use cases, how anybody coming from a financial industry or from a healthcare industry can apply those skills learned from this book?
Yeah, yeah, interesting. So that is a very interesting case. So I want to go that in a moment, but let me just share my screen real quick, just for our audience. Let me take a couple minutes, just to show them, and we're going to share, Taha, also the link to the GitHub repository,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
think that is important as well.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let me share here. You should be seeing my screen in a moment.
Yes,
And
now it
not,
is here.
yeah, so I'm not sure if your audience can see this, but you can share with them this later.
Okay.
So first of all, business use cases. I made sure that the book, after, because I can present you here. This is kind of the table of context of the book, right? So the book is divided into three sections, three parts.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part is what I mentioned before, right? As point number one, you are going to understand through the first few chapters the technology with examples, with practical hands-on examples, not necessarily from a business perspective, but from a technology perspective. Easy to use. You don't have to install anything on your computer. You can run this for free. There is a GitHub repository. This GitHub repository is free. You can go there, and actually these are notebooks. We're not going to get into that right now, but for each chapter there is at least one notebook, Python notebook, that you can run along with videos to show you how it runs, so you can see the practicality of what you are learning, right? And there is 19 different notebooks associated with the book. There is 10 chapters, 19 different notebooks. Okay, so just to have an overview, the first section is going to give you an introduction on OpenAI. You're going to understand the technology. You're going to see in part number two the underlying architecture. Why do we want to understand the underlying architecture? Because if you get an understanding of that underlying architecture, then you can understand diffusion models, like the ones that are used for DALI, for example. Then you can understand vision models. You can understand better using other technologies besides OpenAI Whisper, right? So the underlying architecture is well, we're going to going through fine tuning. But here is what I think is the most valuable part to your question at the beginning, right? What are the real world applications and use cases that we can take advantage of? And again, It is a book, I have to be very selective, Taha. There is plenty of use cases, right? There's plenty of business cases. And in my humble opinion, I think most organization they have good business cases. The reason that perhaps technologies like generative AI are challenging to them is not because of the business cases. They most likely know where the pain points are. They can assign metrics of success. They know what success looks like, right? But it's that gap in between what really is a significant detriment to some organizations that are attempting to implement AI or machine learning or generative AI or any technology for that matter, right? So, to your question about the financial aspect, so what you can see here in the table of contents, so number one, accurate transcription. Accurate transcription is what Whisper is about. The finance industry uses, of course, a lot of written information, but a significant amount of the interaction that happens among teams inside the organization and even with external parties is verbal, right? Sometimes agreements and plans and meetings are associated with that. We know that there are technologies out there like Zoom and even Microsoft Pilot are attempting to do transcription of the conversation so you can take advantage, you can do summarization and things of that nature. In my book, I explain to you how is that done. And more than that, I give you an example in Python through a notebook to do it yourself. So in the finance industry, having accurate record of the information that is spoken or verbal agreements that happen is extremely important. What if you, in addition to getting a transcription, you can also understand the sentiment of a business call, right? A quarterly call. Intel may be reporting their quarterly. You can get a transcription because there's technology already for that. But what if you can take that recording and put the context of that and understand more the sentiment of it? So from the financial perspective, I think there is a significant amount of information there available. Secondly, servicing the customer. The financial industry right now is very competitive. And we're just talking about financial industries, but you can expand that to any industry. There's a lot of commoditization, right? It's a commodity. Financial services are a commodity, for the most part, right? It's well-known services, top of the line. What is the differentiator? The way that you relate to the customer, either a corporate client or an individual, like a private equity scenario. That interaction, that experience can be enhanced as well with techniques for transcription. So you are going to understand transcription and precision. We're going to understand the power of quantization. In the book, I explain that very clearly with very nice examples. So you can bring that closer to your endpoint by using quantization with advanced capabilities. And in addition to that, Taha, I think for the industry, not just financial, but for any industry, there is chapter 8, to me, is one of the most important chapters, perhaps second to number 9. We're going to talk about number 9 in a moment, also associated with finance. But number 8 talks about diarization. And perhaps that is a new concept for some people in the audience, right? Diarization is the process of not just transcribing a speech to text, but Taha, if we're having a conversation here, our brain is able to differentiate, right? Somebody is listening to a conversation, like they are able to differentiate that I am talking and you are talking, right? Now imagine that it's 5 people having a conversation. Our brain is still available or capable of understand who said what when. And that is the key of diarization. Diarization is the process of not just taking the transcription of the text, but also determining who said what when, so you have an accurate transcription of what each person said or each speaker said during the conversation. Isn't that valuable for a legal perspective? Is it that valuable for a finance meeting conversation? Is it that valuable in the political arena that there's a significant amount of conversations and things said at different levels? Imagine every state has a Senate, it has a Congress, it has people discussing things. So we have today people typing, right, that are very skilled. But what in the future we can use theorization, right, to determine that very easily. And finally, I think for the finance industry, voice synthesis is both a threat from a security perspective, Taha, and also a opportunity. So voice synthesis is about synthesizing my voice. And that is how I got started with the book. I wanted to synthesize my voice. Some people like to call it cloning. I don't like the idea of cloning. Uh, like the idea of synthesizing voices because sometimes you want to synthesize a voice for a legitimate purpose. There are people who have deteriorating diseases that they are going to lose their voice because they have a deteriorating disease that is going to deteriorate their ability to speak. Well, you can synthesize their voice now, right, when they can still speak and they can use it. But it's also a threat because voice synthesis have become extremely accurate. And sometimes what is called a deep fake can have a extremely high accuracy as to how someone speaks, the inflection, the way that they pronounce words. And that could be a threat from a fraud perspective, from a terrorist, infiltration perspective, from a safety perspective from our children, right, for our kids. So I think understanding that technology is extremely important for anyone in the technology space because of his, significant. The landscape is huge.
Thank you very much for explaining and explaining in a way that even a student who is just graduating from his high school can understand all of this, which is really important, because we came across a lot of text, a lot of information, and the reason which prevent somebody looking or doing some more deep dive is that, hey, it's too technical for me and I cannot just understand. So thank you
Right.
for helping us all understand the practicality of this. And some of you will be wondering that why I ask Mr. Jose to talk about the finance part, because see guys, every solution, no matter like AI solution, high computing, cybersecurity, it needs budget, it needs funding. So it is important for the finance guys to understand the real value before they can give the funds to help us out, or
Yeah.
to implement any solution. So this is important. And just to add on the use cases, so as you have explained, the technical architecture, the value it brings in different industries, I think for even in the current economical structure, no matter which government will get selected here, but it like this all can be implemented in the government structure. It can enhance a lot of industries. It can improve productivity, as well as it can help solve the real world problems. So this is an important thing which I would really encourage everyone to take a look and take these things seriously.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on, one of my when I like think about any like AI solution, what uh, comes into my mind first is that, hey, if you whatever machine learning algorithm you are using, you have to train that model with some data sets. And how do I ensure that I can prevent any biasness of the data? Because if I'm an enterprise, I can maybe use an open source tool, but that tool is being trained within data which is public data, so we don't know about that. So what do you think? How can this technology, if I'm an enterprise, if I want to use this technology, let's say, how will I ensure that my data is first of all having integrity? It's not tampered, or it's not biased. That's one. And secondly, if I have to integrate this tool or application with my existing applications, how would I what is the step that I would take initially to understand that where are the gaps, and how to go about solving those gaps.
Yeah, yeah, that is very important. And I think I'd like to briefly regress back for a moment to your statement at the end of my explanation about the finance aspect, which was very clever what you said. I think is as technologists, it is as important for us to explain the technology in simple terms, right, for the people who have to make decisions. But also, we need to be very honest and clear, right, as to what is possible and what is not, and what are the implications of that. Because we want to win, right? We want a win for our team, for our organization, and for the world in general, right? And when it comes to technologies that are new technologies like this, we tend sometimes to underestimate the complexity associated with that, which is a segue to what you're asking, right? Because taking a technology that is extremely new, like generative AI, it is new. It is new technology. It's just becoming, right? It's just appearing in front of us. And in most cases, it's a black box. We don't know what is there, right? And in some cases, the complexity to understand the biases or the inclusiveness that we need is extremely costly, right? To do that, especially if we are blind as to how was that done, right? How was that made? So to address your point, I want to just talk about three aspects of it. So number one, in the case of Whisper, I think the advantage that we have with Whisper is that it's open source. So because of that, and just for the audience to understand what open source means, right? Open source means that there are, in very general terms, oversimplifying, you have access to the code, the data, and the process that was used to build that technology. And that is not just for AI or machine learning. Open source has existed for a long time. Um, so it is a strong community. There is a lot of advocacy from big names. Like, for example, OpenAI made Whisper open source. They basically make it publicly available. It's not necessarily that it's free 100%, even though for practical purposes, for us as individuals, it's free because we have access to the technology. In some cases, if you get to a corporate level, there may be some constraints related to the commercial side, but it's essentially you're making the software free and open. So, so that is point number one. That with Whisper, we have access to an open source technology that we can actually see what is in it. It's not a black box. The second point is that because of that point number one, because it's open source, we have to then be very careful as to the actors that may not be working either by purposely or by ignorance, adding, removing, creating, or making things that are not going to be good for our organization or corporation, right? Or even us as individuals. So that, to your point, Taha, you were talking about, how do we ensure that the data that is there, is no bias? How do we ensure that the data is diverse from multiple point of views, right? Not just from a gender point of view, for also there are many populations in the world that are neglected from their language, right? Their language is dying, right? Because there is no encouragement, either formal or informal, for them to use their language, right? So they may not be represented in Whisper because of that. Even though Whisper can do more than 100 languages at this point, I think it continues to change. It can transcribe from more than 100 languages to English. There are languages that are underrepresented in there. And the third aspect is, how do we avoid, because it's open source, how we keep things safe, right? We want this secure. We're bringing an open source technology that is what's basically public. We're bringing it now into our organization to integrate with our technologies. How do we keep those things safe? So going back to the point two, in terms of bias and taking advantage of, I must say, and I explained that in the book, that Whisper was created mostly using technologies like the data that was used was mostly from audiobooks, public audiobooks. And those audiobooks were, in some cases, as part of the data, not all the data, were spoken by native speakers, right? Native English speakers. And that is what I found at the beginning, before I even thought of writing a book, that I want to synthesize my voice, but I found that because most of the models associated with voice were trained using native speakers, the model gets confused when he hear I have an accent, right? I was born in a Spanish-speaking country. So for most of my young, upbringing, I spoke Spanish. For the rest of my life, I want to have some sense, some degree of accent, right? When speaking English, or if I was speaking German one time, and somebody said, "Hey, you speak German with a Spanish accent," and I never thought of that because I learned, German when I was speaking English, but I still the mechanics, the way that I position things in my mouth, and all of that is physical, right? It's the physiology, right? It's muscle memory, right? So how do you deal with that? So in my book, I have a chapter dedicated to fine tuning. So to address point number two, which is how do we ensure that our model, Whisper or any model, how do we ensure that the data is up to our standards in terms of inclusiveness, bias, and perhaps low representation. So in my book, it's in chapter, let me here, yeah, fine tuning, chapter 4. Let me just share my screen real quick with the audience here, so you can take a look at it. So chapter 4 is entirely dedicated to fine tuning Whisper for domain and language specificity. So what you're going to see there is also a notebook. You also have a Python notebook that is going to show you that, how to do this. And we're going to take a language that is low representation, and we're going to fine tune that language within Whisper, and we're going to see the entire process from registering the data, pre-processing data, fine tuning, and we can do all that relatively for free and see the result. It's a small example, but you can amplify that if you are a global international company that want to have more representation when it comes to a specific language. And, or plus, if you are a specialty company that have very specific language associated with your industry. So if you are in oil rigging, for example, running rigs in the middle of the ocean, right? There is a whole set of vocabulary associated with the tools that you use, the mechanism, the processes, the safety constraints. You can include that in your fine-tuning process. So you are biasing Whisper to be more effective when it comes to very specific vocabulary.
Very good.
Medical terms, for example, right? So that is a very important chapter when it comes to that aspect. And then at the end, I explain, especially in chapter 10, when he's talking about the future of a conversational AI, how important is to anticipate biases, inclusiveness, and safety when it comes to Whisper, and the ethics associated with that as well, especially with voice synthesis. So yeah,
Wonderful,
Taha, that is a
wonderful,
very
wonderful,
important point.
wonderful,
I think is what you brought is very clever. So organizations that want to include Whisper technology, there is a multi-level approach. If you take the foundation, right, it's an open source, you can see what is there, you can fine tune it, and you can avoid biases or tamper the biases or the low representation or the vocabulary that you want. Then the integration of it with your technologies is, I don't want to say that it's trivial, but at that point it's inference, right? At that point you have the model ready, it's relatively, you can quantize it, making it smaller. You can apply it to different areas in your organization. And then you can use inference within your organization if you want to host it locally. You can use Hugging Face, you can use Azure, you can use whatever to host the inference model. And through a simple API, you can make calls to that and do your transcription. And that
very good.
transcription now can be integrated into the flow that you have in your organization.
Got
I
it,
hope
got
that
it.
helps.
Yeah, that's very good, and it's brilliantly explained, and I hope the audience found it it's insightful. It's a very good explanation on this. So talking about future, so there is a lot of AI coming in, and people are now afraid of losing their jobs, and to equip themselves, they have a lot of options available which they can use. So just as you were speaking, one thing came into my mind that for somebody who cannot speak, they use sign languages. Would there be any point in future, or what's in your view, how would we make a version 2 of OpenAI Whisper to handle those use cases, to address the people who are like who use sign languages, to incorporate some of those signs into this language as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is the most exciting part of the work that I do, even today. I'm working for ServiceNow. It is a company based in Santa Clara, California, and it's a global company. And they have been working on AI for a significant amount of time. And most recently, they have been putting practical application to generative AI. And I mention that because the case that you are referring to is extremely important for for our organization and for other organizations as well. But in my particular case, I felt that from the very beginning, when I started looking into voice synthesis and voice transcription, we have reached a point, and in my book, I provide an example of that, whereby you can have the combination of other technologies along with Whisper. So, for example, in my book, there is a chapter where I show how to integrate a public free model, which is essentially Llama. I'll show you how to use Llama to actually look at a picture, and from that picture, describe the picture to the user, right? I know it may sound trivial, but it's a lot of technology behind that. And think of the applications of that in the future. OpenAI, when they release GPT-0, they provide us with a glance of what the future is going to look like, right? So essentially, we have technology that can see things. They can see things, right? They can actually look at a picture, and that is what I show you in my book. You look at a picture, and then you can interact with that picture. You can ask questions about that picture, right? What is in it? What colors are there? What are the elements there, right? And you can have that interaction. So if a person is using sign language, what is not to say that a video is nothing else but a series of frames, right? A series of pictures. What is not to say that there could be a camera, they can put their iPhone in front of them, they can be having a simple conversation with someone else, they can use their sign language, the the there is a model, an inference model that is interpreting those motions into characters, and then you use voice synthesis, their own voice, to synthesize what they're saying, right?
Very
So,
good, very good.
right. So, and
Sajid.
what I'm describing is not science fiction. You have all the technology in the book and the notebook available in Python to try yourself,
Yeah.
right? So that is the future, Taha. I think the future is going to be multimodal. The future is going to be agentic. We're going to have autonomous agents working alongside humans, right? To do performance 10x, 100x, no problem when it comes to gaining efficiencies in different fields. And the future is for grabs, right? So yeah, a lot of people have lost their jobs recently, and there is going to be more. Unfortunately, there is going to be more, and that is another conversation. I feel strongly about that because I think it's a management, more management than the people, frankly,
Yeah. Yeah.
the leadership at the organization. But that
Yeah.
is another discussion.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that maybe you watching this video, unfortunately, you lost your job over this weekend, right? You may be working for Intel or one other company, and you were laid off. Um, I must say humbly, I have been there, right? So what I can say is there is no better time now to look. The future is bright. If you are in technology, this is the opportunity to learn because the future is up for grabs. No one has the recipe
Yeah. Yeah.
as to
True.
how
True.
generative AI is going to look like.
True. True. One thing to add here is, so we talked about a lot of things, and yeah, and thank you for the explanation. It's very helpful. One thing to add here is, so when we talk about audio inputs and you know uh, interpreting sign languages, somebody watching this video, somebody who wants to do his next hacking move, will be thinking about how I can corrupt those audio files, how I can, implant something malicious through an audio file into those systems. So one thing to add it here, what I think is how you can prevent is, and please keep me honest here, Mr. Jose, is if you can include something like an input validation check on every time you are taking an input from an audio file or speech or whatever the sources are. Try to validate those inputs coming into your system, and plus think about from the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That how, if my confidentiality is compromised, how would I protect it? How can I secure this? So this is something which you have to keep in mind as you move forward on learning this technology. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. That offers
Okay.
I'm sorry, that offers a whole space within the security
Yeah.
because there are ways to create, fingerprints on your voice. And those fingerprints are going to become very key to whatever technology is going to be in the future as to validate that Josue is the one making that recording. Josue is the one speaking, right? And that will have implications at all different levels.
Got it. Got it. So as we are moving to the last segment of our podcast, what message do you want to give to anybody watching this video and to everybody who will be reading this book about uh, what they can from their personal and professional career growth? Uh, if you want to give just one liner, it will be, I know it will be difficult, but just for people to understand that, hey, uh, after learning this, the technology in this book, like the content of this book, you will be able to achieve two three these main things. What do you say on this?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you're if you first of all, my motivation and my encouragement to all of you, get the book, right? It's a small investment. You can even get the digital format for a very nominal amount. I know that there are people all over the world that perhaps are watching this and they cannot afford the book. Well, now you have the free notebooks, right? Take advantage of them. They're free and you can run them for free. There is no investment. So that goes back to the point. After you go through either my notebooks, if you cannot afford the book, or you use the book, you are going to understand better generative AI, which is the future. So you'll be able to speak and understand the vocabulary and the nouns and all the things associated with generative AI in a more intelligent format. So if you are looking for a new job, if you are having a conversation, if you're doing a presentation, you will have a better way to communicate and express what this technology is about. Secondly, if you go through the notebooks and you go through my book, you have a portfolio at the end. Each chapter is completely self-contained. You don't need the chapter before to do that chapter. If you want to learn voice synthesis, you can just take that chapter and learn it from that. If you want to learn fine tuning, go to that chapter. The bottom line is simply apply what you're learning. And number three, share it. Share it with others. It's the best way to learn, right? So get the book, get the notebooks, do it, be practical, and share with others.
Thank you. Very well said, Mr. Jose. And to end this, for me, I would say that see, everybody knows that these are the challenging times currently. Economy is not really good, no matter in which part of the world you are. But everybody is having their own issues. So think about something which is in your control. Not something which is like the government is responsible of, or your employers are responsible of. So think about how you can be a better version of yourself, and try to enhance your knowledge every day. And when I say about enhancing knowledge, think about something which you can learn, which is like this book, the practical experience which this book offers in terms of codes, the GitHub repository which you can apply those skills which you are learning. And thirdly, whatever you are learning and doing hands-on experience, try to share that knowledge with your audience. Try to create a video, share with your peers, make like get a mentee, or like start teaching it. In this way, you will be able to see yourself where you are in terms of your knowledge, and also what would help you in building your confidence and your profile in. And maybe in future you may not need a job, you can do something of your own. So this can be
Yes.
can be something which can be a motivation for you.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for watching this podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to be like hosting, Mr. Jose, and I hope that you have enjoyed this. I wish you all the best in your career, and please do buy this book, and share me your comments and thoughts. And if you want to reach out to Mr. Jose, he's on LinkedIn. He's very much like reachable, and he can guide you further, on this journey. Thank you very
And
much,
Taha,
everyone.
and
Yeah.
Taha, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the time here. You're doing an excellent job on your team with X Security Pulse. I follow that as well, and I encourage others to do the same because security is going to be the next currency. Security is the next currency. Doesn't matter what technology you are, what space you are. Security is the key, and Taha and his team are taking the lead on that, and you're gonna end up in a good place by following them as well. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. See you guys. Bye bye.